Rex Ryan, a man whose entire coaching legacy is a fumbled tenure built on defensive bluster and locker room drama, just decided to accuse Shedeur Sanders of being lazy, unprofessional, and disrespectful, with zero evidence? And ESPN aired it like it was gospel? No footage, no context, no quotes, just a drive-by smear job dressed up as analysis. This wasn't commentary. It was character assassination. And it says a whole lot more about Rex Ryan and the state of sports media than it ever will about Shedeur Sanders.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Let's not pretend this was a football critique. Ryan didn't talk schemes, reads, or tape. He threw around vague, loaded accusations that just so happened to play right into the tired, racialized stereotype of the unfocused, young black quarterback. Lazy. Entitled. Doesn't study. We've heard this script before. And we know exactly who it's aimed at. Here's the wild part. Sanders has done nothing to warrant this kind of targeted disrespect. He hasn't popped off in the media. He hasn't dragged coaches. He hasn't flamed out in games. If anything, he's shown more maturity than the talking heads throwing dirt on his name. The guy has taken a third-string role quietly, focused on his craft, and stayed professional through one of the most chaotic stretches of his young career. But that doesn't sell airtime, does it? Rex Ryan's reckless commentary wasn't just irresponsible, it was strategically damaging. ESPN gave a national platform to baseless claims that could follow Sanders throughout his career. It's the kind of narrative poison that gets injected into team boardrooms, fan forums, and social media feeds, influencing perception before a player even gets a real shot. And what? For a soundbite? A hot take? This isn't just about Sanders. It's about a pattern. The way young black quarterbacks like Shedeur are constantly held under a different microscope. Their confidence gets reframed as arrogance. Their individuality becomes a distraction. Their learning curve is interpreted as laziness. Meanwhile, other QBs, less talented, less accomplished, are given the benefit of the doubt. They're raw. They just need time. They get narrative protection. Shedeur gets dragged through the mud for existing. Let's not forget, this didn't happen in a vacuum. It's coming right as the Browns are knee-deep in quarterback chaos. It feels too perfectly timed, like someone's trying to control the narrative before Shedeur even gets a chance to rewrite it himself. But here's the thing, he will. Because all the noise, all the spin, all the slander, it won't change the fact that Shedeur Sanders is the real deal. And he doesn't have to clap back, his game will do it for him. What needs to happen now is simple, media accountability. If you're going to talk, back it up. If you're going to criticize, bring receipts. And if you're going to weaponize stereotypes on national TV, don't be shocked when the backlash comes for you. Rex Ryan messed up. ESPN let it happen. And Shedeur? He's still standing, focused, unbothered, and ready to prove every word wrong. Well, it finally happened. ESPN has reportedly taken action after Rex Ryan's reckless, baseless, and frankly dangerous comments about Shedeur Sanders went viral, and not in a good way. We're talking career smearing, narrative shaping, perception warping levels of viral. And this time, the public wasn't having it. Let's get straight to the point. Rex Ryan went on national television and accused Shedeur Sanders of being lazy, of not studying film, of being disrespectful in practice. He said these things as if they were facts, as if they'd been confirmed, as if he had the receipts. Spoiler alert, he didn't. No proof, no sources, no context, just vibes and venom. And somehow this got airtime. On ESPN, a platform that should know better, the backlash came hard and fast. Social media lit up. Fans, former players, analysts, and even neutral viewers began calling it what it was. Character assassination, plain and simple. Not analysis. Not insight. Not journalism. Just unsubstantiated gossip delivered with the confidence of someone who knew he wouldn't be questioned. Until now. Because this time, the blowback was too strong to ignore. This time, the stakes were different. Rex Ryan wasn't just criticizing a player. He was perpetuating something deeper, something the sports world has been reckoning with for years. Media bias. Racial double standards. The systemic problem of how young black quarterbacks are portrayed versus everyone else. Because let's be honest, Shedeur Sanders is under a microscope that doesn't exist for his white counterparts. Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, none of them have had to endure the same level of media hostility, especially this early in their careers. They get the benefit of the doubt. They get development time. Shedeur gets called lazy, with zero evidence. That's not commentary. That's coded messaging. That's dog whistling dressed up as football talk. And it's not just about Rex Ryan. It's about the platform that gave those words reach. ESPN aired those accusations without pushback, without verification, without editorial responsibility. Which begs the question, how does a major sports network allow this? It's because narratives sell. And controversial takes, even if they're false, get clicks. But here's the problem. This isn't just a take. It's a character attack. And character attacks stick. They shape public opinion. They shape how coaches, executives, and scouts view a player. They shape contract negotiations and sponsorships. And when those attacks are rooted in tired, harmful stereotypes, they don't just damage a reputation, they reinforce systemic problems that have plagued the league for decades. Let's call it what it is: media manipulation. Rex Ryan didn't just speculate. He strategically framed Shedeur Sanders as an unserious, immature player without offering a shred of proof. It was designed to plant a seed of doubt. And it's not the first time we've seen this tactic used against confident, outspoken black athletes, especially quarterbacks. It's the same playbook. If the athlete is talented and self-assured, paint him as cocky. If he has swagger, say he's not humble. If he doesn't conform, call him a distraction. It's subtle. It's coded. But it's always the same result. Tear them down before they fully arrive. But here's where this story takes a turn. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't respond. Not with a tweet. Not with a quote. Not even a subtle Instagram story. He stayed quiet. He kept showing up. He kept doing the work. And in that silence, he said everything. Resilience speaks louder than hot takes. And that's exactly why the backlash to Rex Ryan's comments hit so hard. Because people could see through it. They saw the contrast. A respected young quarterback doing his job versus a retired coach lobbing baseless accusations from behind a desk. It wasn't just mean-spirited, it was transparent. And ESPN knew it. Which is why reports started circulating that internal discussions were held about the segment. And while no public punishment has been confirmed, the word disciplinary has been tossed around behind the scenes. Some say Ryan was pulled from upcoming coverage. Others claim the network is re-evaluating its standards for commentary. Either way, the message is clear. They felt the heat. Because they should. ESPN isn't just any media outlet. It's the largest sports network in the country. It influences opinion. It sets narratives. And when that kind of power is used to amplify lies, there have to be consequences. Because if there aren't, what's stopping this from happening to the next young star? This entire controversy is a textbook case of how media narratives are weaponized. And not randomly, strategically. Rex Ryan's comments just so happened to surface while the Cleveland Browns were spiraling. While Shedeur's path to the starting job was under scrutiny. While internal politics and PR pressure were brewing. So ask yourself, was this about football? Or was this about optics? Was this a frustrated analyst going rogue? Or was this a calculated effort to undermine a rising player at the exact moment he threatened the status quo? Because let's not pretend the timing is accidental. This isn't just about Rex Ryan's mouth. It's about the machinery behind him. The producers who greenlit the segment. The editors who let it air. The executives who allowed it to shape coverage for an entire news cycle. The system that profits off tearing down black athletes while giving others grace, patience, and every excuse in the book. And if you think that sounds harsh, look around. The pattern is undeniable. Shedeur Sanders is far from the first. He's just the latest target in a long line of quarterbacks who've had to be twice as good, twice as polished, and 3 times as unproblematic just to be treated with half the respect. And even then, it's not enough. Because to some, confidence equals arrogance. Swagger equals threat. And individuality? That's unacceptable unless it fits the league's preferred mold. But here's the truth. Shedeur Sanders is the future. Whether Rex Ryan likes it or not. He's talented. He's composed. Smart. He's marketable. And more importantly, he's mentally tough. He's been tested in a way most rookies never are. And through it all, he's remained focused. That's what scares people like Rex Ryan. Not Shedeur's flaws, his potential. Because potential disrupts power. And Shedeur's presence alone threatens a system built to uplift some and suppress others. So let's be clear, this isn't about one commentator going too far. It's about a broken media culture that thrives on division, controversy, and control. It's about who gets protected and who gets vilified. It's about how quickly a false narrative can snowball, and how hard it is to undo the damage once it spreads. And it's about time we demand better. Better from analysts. Better from networks. Better from the entire industry. Because the integrity of sports journalism should matter. And if we keep letting people like Rex Ryan throw around accusations with no evidence, that integrity is gone. We owe it to players like Shedeur Sanders, players who put in the work, carry themselves with professionalism, and still have to battle media bias on top of everything else. We owe it to the next generation of athletes watching how this all unfolds. And we owe it to the fans who want truth, not manufactured drama. So yes, ESPN is reportedly punishing Rex Ryan. But that's not enough. What we need now is accountability across the board. Clear standards. Real consequences. And a long overdue reckoning with how sports media chooses its heroes and villains. Shedeur Sanders isn't lazy. He isn't disrespectful. And he sure as hell doesn't deserve to have his reputation dragged because someone needed a headline. He deserves a fair shot. And if the media won't give it to him, then it's on us to push back. What do you think? Did Rex Ryan cross the line, or did ESPN let this happen by design? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into sports media controversies, and remember, talent rises, but truth always exposes the game. Rex Ryan's smear job on Shedeur Sanders didn't just come and go. It cracked open something bigger. Something that's been simmering in sports media for years, but never quite exploded the way it has now. And that's this. The way the media weaponizes personality, race, and platform, especially when it comes to young black quarterbacks. We're talking about a kid, yes, a kid, who's done everything right. Shedeur Sanders hasn't been in any scandals. No locker room drama. No distractions. No diva behavior. Just a confident, highly visible, hyper-analyzed quarterback trying to navigate the NFL's most political position. And the first real spotlight ESPN shines on him is a baseless character attack? That's not analysis. That's sabotage. And it wasn't just what Rex Ryan said, it was how he said it. With authority. With certainty. Like he was delivering insider truth instead of spinning personal opinion into supposed fact. And ESPN? They let it air. They gave him the microphone. They let those words hang in the air unchecked. They platformed a falsehood. That's the kind of damage you don't walk back with a quiet internal meeting and a slap on the wrist. Because whether ESPN wants to admit it or not, they knew what they were doing. This wasn't some offhand remark. It was a strategic hit during a moment when Shedeur's standing with the Browns was already fragile. He had just been demoted to QB3 in a move that made zero football sense. The timing was suspicious. The silence from Cleveland's coaching staff was louder than any press conference. And then, like clockwork, Rex Ryan enters the chat with a narrative tailor-made to justify it all. He's lazy. He doesn't study. He's disrespectful. No sources. No quotes. Just poison disguised as punditry. And let's not sugarcoat it. This was racially coded, plain and simple. Because let's play a game. Say Shedeur Sanders was white. Say he came from a traditional football family but didn't carry the cultural weight, the confidence, the platform, the fan base, or the influence Shedeur does. Say he had the exact same stats and demeanor. Do we really think Rex Ryan would have said the same things? Or would we be hearing phrases like developing maturity, growing pains, learning curve? It's the same story we've seen with every black quarterback who dared to be more than just humble and quiet. Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. The moment they showed personality, flavor, if you will, the media turned it into a narrative problem. And Shedeur's not just a quarterback. He's a brand. A walking threat to the idea that young black athletes should be grateful and silent. And for people like Rex Ryan, that's intolerable. This is what happens when power meets threat. Because that's all this really is. A threat to a system that wants control. A system that gets nervous when a player has more influence than the coach. When the athlete doesn't wait for permission to speak. When he already has a platform bigger than the talking heads on TV. And Shedeur? He's all of that. He doesn't need ESPN to tell his story. And that's why they tried to rewrite it themselves. But here's where it backfired. Because the public's not stupid. They saw it. They heard the tone. They clocked the lack of evidence. And for once, they didn't let it slide. The backlash wasn't just loud, it was unified. Fans called it out. Analysts corrected the record. Former players, especially black quarterbacks, rallied in defense of Shedeur. People weren't just upset, they were disgusted. Because this wasn't football talk. This was a hit job. And ESPN? They've been in damage control ever since. Behind the scenes, you can bet producers are combing through that segment wondering how it got greenlit. Legal's probably involved. PR is definitely scrambling. Because the one thing the network didn't expect was that this time, people would push back. You can't spin your way out of this with a soft apology. You can't pretend it was a difference of opinion. You let a grown man go on TV and assassinate a rookie's character on national television. You aired it like it was news. That's not journalism. That's reckless. And look, Rex Ryan's never been known for measured commentary. He's a soundbite guy. That's why ESPN brought him on. He says wild things. He rants. He plays the no-nonsense coach card. But there's a difference between hot takes and harmful lies. And this time, he crossed the line. What's even worse? This could have had real career consequences for Shedeur. Think about how fragile early career narratives are for quarterbacks. One storyline, one bad report, can stick for years. Coaches read this stuff. Scouts hear it. Front office execs internalize it. He's not coachable. He doesn't work hard. Those words don't just fade. They follow you. They define you, unless you're lucky enough to rewrite the script yourself. And that's what makes Shedeur's silence so powerful. He didn't clap back. He didn't post receipts. He didn't rant. He let the narrative run its course and trusted that the truth would win out. And that right there? That's what true professionalism looks like. That's what mental toughness looks like. You want to talk about maturity? Start there. Because if the roles were reversed, we all know what the conversation would be. If Shedeur had gone on social media and blasted a coach, he'd be called immature. If he skipped practice or disrespected staff, he'd be not ready for the league. But Rex Ryan can casually accuse a player of all those things on national TV without a shred of proof and only maybe face consequences? That's the double standard. Right there. It's racial. It's cultural. And it's baked into the way we talk about players like Shedeur. The NFL loves talent, but only on its terms. You can be flashy, but not too flashy. Confident, but not cocky. Marketable, but not uncontrollable. And the moment you deviate from that, the media takes its shot. And the goal is always the same: remind you who's really in charge. Except this time, it didn't work. Because fans see Shedeur. They've watched his journey. They've seen how he carries himself. They know this isn't about his character, it's about control. And now, the focus has flipped. Rex Ryan's not the voice of authority anymore, he's the cautionary tale. And Shedeur? He's the guy who got lied about, stayed quiet, and let the truth rise. That's power. And it's the kind of power the media can't erase with a single narrative swing. Not anymore. So where do we go from here? Hopefully, toward a media environment that values truth over theatrics. Hopefully, toward actual accountability when someone spreads lies. Hopefully, toward a league that protects its young players instead of allowing them to be fed to the content machine. Because if ESPN really wants to make this right, punishing Rex Ryan isn't enough. They need to change the culture that allowed it to happen in the first place. And for the rest of us? We watch. We speak up. We call it out. Because these moments matter, not just for Shedeur, but for every athlete who comes next. The media needs to know, these narratives don't go unchecked anymore. What happened here isn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a much deeper rot in sports commentary, unchecked narratives from personalities who know their words carry weight, but act like they don't. And in Rex Ryan's case, this wasn't just a slip-up. It was a deliberate swing at a young player with nothing but upside. Just because that player refuses to fit into the box, old-school voices still try to trap black quarterbacks in. Shedeur Sanders didn't miss curfew. He didn't show up late. He didn't dog it in practice. He didn't pull a diva stunt. There's not one documented report of him being anything but professional since entering the league. So when Rex Ryan sat on national TV and essentially tried to label him as lazy, unprepared, and disrespectful, without citing a single source, you have to ask, what was the goal? Because that kind of messaging doesn't come from nowhere. It's not just Rex having an opinion. It's part of a pattern where young black quarterbacks get branded as trouble before they've even been given a chance to lead. It's subtle sabotage dressed up as analysis. It's using coded language like work ethic and attitude to undermine credibility while pretending it's about football. But we've seen this movie before. And this time, people weren't buying it. Fans didn't just reject the narrative, they exposed it. They highlighted the double standards. They pointed out how other young QBs, with worse numbers and more inconsistency, don't get labeled like this. They called out how media voices like Rex rarely direct this kind of fire at players who fit the mold. And they recognized something ESPN clearly didn't. People are done letting lazy, racially coded critiques pass as commentary. The most ironic part? All of this only amplified Shedeur Sanders' profile. Because when you try to dim someone's light without facts, all you end up doing is making their silence louder. Shedeur's refusal to engage, his ability to stay composed, and his focus on what actually matters, his game, did more to build his reputation than 100 highlight reels. He didn't clap back. He let the public do it for him. And now, it's Rex Ryan on the defensive. Not Shedeur. It's ESPN cleaning up a mess of their own making. And it's the rest of the media world being forced to think twice before they let the next hot take spiral into defamation. Because yes, this was defamation. Not in a legal sense, maybe. But in a cultural one? Absolutely. And the accountability can't stop here. So, what do you think? Was this a slip of the tongue, or a calculated attack wrapped in opinion? Sound off in the comments, subscribe for more media callouts, and stay tuned. Because as long as voices like Rex Ryan get airtime, someone has to keep the receipts.